All right, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Email Marketing Best Practices webinar. My name is Alana, and I'm Head of Growth and Partnerships here at Freitag Marketing. I am joined today by Ray Coffin from All Access InfoTech, who specializes in business support or IT support for businesses. Thank you, Ray, for joining us. So we'll be spending the next 45 minutes or so sharing some practical tips and ways to improve your email marketing, whether that's writing and design, to engagement, to, like I said, those best technical practices that Ray will be sharing with us as well, that help your emails actually reach inboxes and are exciting to the people receiving those in their inbox. So before we jump in, I'd love to hear from folks in the crowd. What is your biggest email marketing challenge? Why are you here today? Are you trying to get started with email marketing and looking for a place to jump off from? Are you currently email marketing and just looking for some tips? Or are there any specific things that you're looking to tackle? Because we'd love to address those in today's session. Feel free to throw those in the chat or unmute yourself and let us know.
All of the above.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Charles. Do you currently do any email marketing?
Yeah, we do a small amount. Yeah.
Okay.
For me,
Anybody else?
I'm really just starting to kind of get into the marketing world and figuring out what works for my type of business where it doesn't feel too pushy. So that's kind of where I'm feeling the most stuck.
Definitely. Okay, perfect. Awesome. We will address all of that today. So let's jump in with writing and designing effective newsletters and what that looks like. So whether it's a promotional email or a newsletter, design is the first thing that people notice before they even start reading. I think a lot of us can relate to that. If you open up an email and it's just all text and no color, it's often just going right to trash or not getting read. Think about an email like body language in a conversation when you're first being introduced to someone. Before you even say a single word, you walk up to them and you're kind of sussing out, is this going to be a friendly conversation, a tough conversation? Is this person approachable? Your email has that same impression. So a well-designed email can boost engagement, trust, and conversions. It sets the tone before you speak. Number two, mobile first design. A lot of people don't realize that over 60% of emails are read on mobile devices. So if it's not mobile friendly, you've already lost more than half of your audience. This means paying attention to things like readable fonts, clear buttons, and layouts that stack really nicely on a phone. I've had multiple times where I'll receive emails and it's very clear that the call to action button is not in the right place because someone didn't take the time to reorder the content so that it's mobile friendly. Similarly, if you're just hyperlinking text within your email, that can sometimes be really hard to click on for folks using a mobile phone. So just be conscious of really making buttons big enough or any sort of link big enough for people to click on. And last but not least, consistency and branding are key. That builds trust. So use those same colors, fonts, and tone. Have a brand guideline that you're bringing to the table every time you put together an email. Using a template is a really great way to do that easily. And it reassures people that the message is really from you. How often have you gotten a spam email that's trying to spoof off of something legitimate, and it kind of, you realize that it doesn't look quite right, and that sets off alarm bells in your head that something is off. Don't make your emails so inconsistent that somebody thinks something is off. So let's look at some examples of what a good versus a bad email looks like. Probably no surprises here as consumers of email marketing. The one on the left is super text heavy, a lot of black and white. They do have one pop of color, which is great. But there's a lot to get through before you even get to the first call to action. The T is for tame email uses a nice kind of hero banner photo up there, very little text, a very clear call to action, and even just some little design elements, that little squiggly line to break up the text. They also take advantage of some different colors to call out specific parts of the text or headers, and that just really helps your eye read through it quickly, get a gist of what they're asking for or what promotion that they're having, and send you on your way. So think about how you want people to feel when they get your email in their inbox. Some of us might be guilty of sending emails like the one on the left, and it kind of doesn't give the impression that you put a lot of time into it. Again, this is something that a template can save you. on, because you could create something very similar to the T is for tame email and then make it plug and play for those future communications. Let's talk about frequency really quick. Alyssa, I think this ties into your question. Has anybody here, you can either show of hands or put it in the chat, ever signed up for an email or text list to get a discount on something, right? You sign up, you're like, I'm gonna be a first customer to get 10% off. And then suddenly you get inundated with emails and texts. You're getting something like every day and you're basically unsubscribing immediately. Don't be those people. Generally, our rule of thumb is 1 to 2 emails a month, unless you're specifically an e-commerce or retail business. And then like once or twice a week is more acceptable because you probably have more flash deals or sales going on. But more than that, people don't really want to see. So just make sure you're having those frequently enough that people don't forget about you, but not so frequently that you're just clogging people's inboxes and you're going to spam or you're getting deleted right away. Any questions on that? Okay. So let's talk about what that layout looks like to be engaging. It's not rocket science, but some people miss these. So we'll go through each one. Keep it clean and simple. A cluttered layout overwhelms readers. As you can see, like the PDF filter one on the previous example was cluttered in the sense that there was just a lot of text. They were really good about using white space, but no one's going to read that whole thing. Pay attention to hierarchy and flow as well. People rarely read every word, so put the most important things at the top and make sure that if you do have a call to action, you're putting that in several places. So if somebody doesn't scroll all the way to the bottom, they're not missing that. White space is your friend. It helps the brain process information. So don't be afraid of having some blank space in there. But if you do have some blank space that you're feeling like you need to fill, you can put in an image or graphic. Just make sure that they're high quality and they're actually relevant to what you're talking about. Sometimes we run into issues where people feel like they need a photo in there and they just throw in a very generic stock photo. And it clearly just makes people kind of disassociate from whatever you were trying to get across because it's not related to your brand. It clearly was kind of thrown in there. And so use a real picture of either you in action or your team in action or the product or service that you're trying to provide. And last but not least, I did reference this earlier, but make sure your buttons and links are big enough for those mobile taps so people aren't getting lost and are able to actually follow through on whatever you're asking them to do. A missed button can mean a missed sale. So more frequent opportunities to put a button in there that's easily clickable is better. Any questions on that and how to build an engaging layout? Okay. Here's another example. This is for Granita. It's a high-end restaurant here in town. And this is an example of a newsletter that we've created for them. So introduction, a really short blurb. Dear friends of Granita, make it super relatable. You're a specific part of this niche group that's special to Granita because you subscribe to their email newsletter. And it makes you immediately feel that warm and fuzzy feeling like I am part of this community. Then it's followed by some really nice graphics promoting their upcoming events with just very little, a few sentences of text underneath to talk about what those are. And then each picture or each blurb has a call to action. Book your table now, book your seats. You can kind of switch up the call to action language slightly so it doesn't get too tired. But it's a really great way to make sure that people have that separation of, okay, topic 1, topic 2, topic 3. The top one is what we're promoting the most, or maybe it's coming up the soonest, so we want to get that out there, followed by a couple other things that we want to promote. Also make sure it's not too long. Sometimes people want to put everything into their newsletter. Try to cut it down to 2 or 3 main points that you want to get across and save the longer information for a blog post. If you're going to do any sort of maybe social media video, just a quick explanation of something. If you're talking about yourself, keep that for like the About Us section of your website. There's other opportunities outside of your newsletter to really showcase these aspects of your business. And the newsletter should really just serve as a teaser, a way to get information out quickly, and a way to get people to take action. So something that folks often think of last, or it's an afterthought, is subject lines and your call to actions. So you've made a beautiful email template, you have it all ready to go, and you're in your email marketing platform. It might be MailChimp, it might be Constant Contact, and it's asking you for a subject line. And you go, oh shoot, I didn't give this any thought. And so you kind of just put in something, whatever comes to mind. Here's a couple ways you can enhance that subject line. So take advantage of our special discount on your next purchase, limited time offer. The reason this doesn't work super well, not only is it long, but it puts the onus on the customer to take action. It's saying, hey, we're having this promotion. If you feel like taking advantage of it, cool. But like, we're not going to put any extra effort into making this interesting for you. Versus unlock 20% off today only. Okay, wow, I'm a customer. I'm interested in your product. I've been thinking about buying it for a while. Today might be a good time to do that because it's 20% off. Okay, cool. See how there's just a slight difference there that kind of changes the psychology of how I am reading that and interpreting that as a customer. Similarly, be really mindful of using any sort of urgency or reward. Those can get results, but make sure if you're saying 20% off today only, it's truly only 20% off today only. Otherwise, sometimes people can get frustrated saying, hey, there was this call to action, there was this urgency, I bought it today because you told me I had to buy it today, but the sale was actually going on all week, what gives? On another thread I've seen where companies get in hot water because they'll have a 20% off sale one day, and then the next day they'll do a 50% off sale. And people get really frustrated because they say, why did you tell me to buy it now if I could have bought it tomorrow for even less? So just be conscious. It's a super great tool to use to create that sense of urgency, but just make sure that if you're running other promotions simultaneously, or the promotion is going on all week, say that it's going on all week and be honest. The preview text also is prime real estate for you. So many people have the preview text on their emails turned on, and the preview text is really, aside from the subject line, those first couple of sentences or even just few words that give people insight into what the message says before they open it. And so this is an opportunity for you to highlight something, again, like only a few hours left to claim your 20% off, don't miss out. Give a little bit of an explanation and a teaser into what's happening in that email. And then last here, the CTA, again, instead of having something super generic, limited time offer available. What's the offer? When is it available? Why? The better option is shop now, save 20%. Keep it simple, don't overthink it. But look at other e-commerce brands or emails that you're getting from folks that are really compelling and use those as a sample or a litmus test of, did that work for me? Or is this not really speaking to me? And that's a great way you can kind of get some inspiration for your own emails. Any questions on CTAs or subject lines? Okay, great, we're moving right along here. So segmenting audiences for targeted campaigns. This is a low-hanging fruit, but can be so effective for your email marketing. Personalization can really help you drive a return on your investment, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes when we suggest segmentation or we're talking to people about email marketing, people think they have to go so overboard and segment people into such specific groups and lists. And what I mean by segmentation, it could be demographic, like by age, gender, income, location. It could be behavioral, like people who shop with you really often, people who open your emails frequently, people who are visiting your website a lot, or maybe the people who haven't bought something from you in a while but were previous customers. Keep in mind that it could literally be as simple as leads versus people who have purchased from you in the past, and you can keep it as simple as that to start. Also keep in mind that you don't want to make your lists too small, right? You're putting all this effort into making a beautiful newsletter, and if you're only sending it to 15 people, maybe you should consider segmenting a little bit less or broadening your segmentation so that you can actually reach more people. When people receive content that seems like it was personalized for them, engagement skyrockets. I can think of an example. So I'm a skier. I buy the same ski pass every year, and when it goes on sale, they email me way ahead of when the general public can buy it because I've been a buyer of this ski pass every year. And so I always buy when they send that first email that says, hey, thank you for being a loyal customer. you get first dibs on purchasing the ski pass, I will go in and buy it that day because I feel like they've taken the time to look at my purchase history. They value me as a customer. And so, I take action. I think others can probably, everybody here probably has an excuse or a reason that they have purchased something because they got that personalized messaging. Okay, so you've done all the work. You've thought about your design, you've thought about your call to action, your segmentation. How do you choose the right email marketing platform for your business? And so there's a lot of really user-friendly platforms out there. We highlighted these four. There's also others. So Constant Contact, MailChimp, you might have heard of those, Klaviyo, and Bravo. They're all similar, but there's some reasons that you might want to differentiate and choose one over the other. So Constant Contact works really well for local service businesses and nonprofits. It has a very user-friendly interface, has strong customer support if you ever need help, and it's not super expensive. It starts at $20 a month. MailChimp, we recommend for small businesses and beginners. MailChimp is really nice because they have a lot of templates you can pick from. They do have a free tier if you just want to do some experimenting and get started, especially if you have under 500 subscribers on your list. And the paid plans aren't very expensive at all. It's under $10 a month for those initial plans. Klaviyo is for the more advanced folks, so people who are in e-commerce and online retail. This would be people who want to do drip campaigns, meaning, okay, a customer purchased something and they want to follow up, or an abandoned cart message saying, hey, we saw you were on our site and you were about to purchase something, what happened? Those types of campaigns where it requires some integration into your Shopify or WooCommerce platforms. But it's still not terribly expensive at $20 a month. And then lastly, Bravo. This is a nice budget conscious option for businesses. There's an SMS texting component. So if you are reaching your clients or customers through texting, that's a nice service that you can use. And again, this does have a free tier. So if you're just getting started and you want to experiment between different platforms before ultimately choosing one, I highly recommend signing up for a couple and seeing which interface you like better. Any questions on the platforms? Okay. So with that, I will turn it over to Ray to talk a little bit more about the technical best practices and how to keep your emails safe and successful. Because at the end of the day, even if the best designed email is out there, it won't matter if it doesn't reach the inbox of the people who you're trying to get it to. So Ray, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thanks. The first part was very interesting to me. It's not something I usually get to deal with. So I'm going to just kind of move it over towards just talking in specifics to this, how to get your email delivered, and the things you should have in place to make that happen. And if you just go ahead and move to the next slide, I'll get to we've all seen these emails. These are your classic phishing. I'm going to talk a little bit about how this doesn't look like yours. This is awesome. And I'm so sorry. I think I got lost. Am I back?
You're there. Yep.
All
You're
right.
good.
I'm so sorry. Anyhow, well, let's move on to the next slide, please.
Okay.
Keeping your email list clean, making sure that you're not sending emails that people who are wanting to be removed helps with your reputation. Making sure that you're not just going out and grabbing emails, throwing them into a list and sending them. You want to make sure that your brand has a good reputation. I don't like it when it happens all the time in our business. I have to post my email address for certain reasons. I put it out online, a vendor captures it, all of a sudden I'm getting emails on something I didn't really care about or have any interest in. I mark them as spam. That's gonna hurt your brand and your reputation. So next slide, please. So let's just kind of go into why you just did all this work and your emails might be invisible to me. And why would that happen? It's not just because you're not doing everything right. You just spent, as we just talked about, getting your emails, crafted, getting the right call to action, getting the right title, getting the attention of the reader, and then it doesn't get delivered. 1 in 6 legitimate emails don't get delivered, and it's not about what you put in the email. It could be the list, but a lot of times it's about your domain, your like All Access InfoTech, that's our domain, being trusted. Next slide, please. So there's a real cost for not being trusted. Your undelivered emails, not only the work you just put in the last few minutes, and getting the right call to action, getting the right offer, purchasing something for the offer, however it works, you put all that work in, and then nobody sees it. And your emails don't get delivered if it's not trusted because it's unauthenticated. And I'm going to go over what that is. And it's really a lost sale, wasted time. So why this matters now? Why is this happening now? So in the last couple of years, and it's slowly been happening, and if you read some of the news, it'll say it's happening this month, it'll say it's happening in 2026. But Google, Microsoft, they are starting to say if you aren't setting up your email domains for marketing correctly, and specifically or any emails, invoicing, etc., you're not going to get delivered to our servers. We want to make sure that the person sending from this domain is a legit person. So they've started putting in rules. If these things aren't set up, we're going to block it. Next slide, please. And we've seen this. I talked this just a minute ago. What we don't want to happen is your brand to go out with something like this. And we're going to be I'm going to give you the information on how you can help protect that. This is a spoof sender. We've seen these. We talk about this a lot. And a lot of times how this can happen is you don't have these things called authentication. And I'm going to apologize. It's like, talk about acronyms. Here we go. You're talking about DMARC, SPF, and DKIM, and I'm going to explain what all those are and why you should have them. And if you look at this email, it's really about urgency, getting somebody to do something quickly and using your domain or your brand to do that. It doesn't help your marketing going forward. So we want to make sure they have the right things in place to clean this up. Slide, please. So let's go ahead and just talk about turning it from getting the right strategy in place to protect your email and putting the right protocols in place. We're going to talk about setting up SPF, which is the Sender Policy Framework, and then DKIM, which is the Domain Keys Identified Mail, and DMARC, which is it's a domain-based messaging, authentication, reporting, and conformance protocol. And I really do apologize about the acronyms, but they'll make sense in a minute, I promise. So what is SPF for, and where does this stuff live? That's maybe not really in the slide, but I should say. So when you purchase a domain from GoDaddy or whoever you choose, it gets set up on something called a DNS server, domain name server. And what we want to do, it tells you where you send your email and how you find your website and put it in records. That's pretty common today. But we also want to add 3 more things to make sure that your domain is authenticated correctly when you're sending email. And the first one is this SPF. And that's really telling anytime you send an email that goes out of your outbox and into my inbox, the server that receives it looks at this thing called the Sender Policy Framework and says, hey, is this email server authorized to send? That's how we're going to start to protect your brand. And then the DKIM, which is it puts a little encryption, kind of like how you do credit card processing today, if you think of it that way. It's going to protect the email, make sure it's not tampered with, and it makes sure it has your stamp, your brand stamp on it. And then the DMARC, that's kind of like a lot of analogies they give is, that's the bouncer, at the, letting you in. If you don't have if you're underage, you're not coming, I'm going to bounce you out. So the DMARC will really sit there and look at what to do if either DKIM or SPF fails. Is there any questions does that make sense so far?
You're
Okay.
doing great so far, Ray.
I know everybody loves this conversation. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to, but
Well,
it's really, really important.
We run DNS servers, so
Okay.
we are pretty familiar with this.
All right. Great. That's awesome. Thank you. Next slide, please. So the SPF is really to help keep your marketing emails out of spam. And like I said, it's your emails approved sender list. So, you go out, we just talked about different email solutions for delivery of marketing emails, like constant contact, maybe you're using your CRM. You want to make sure that because they may not be sending off from your Microsoft 365 server or your Google, depending on which you're using, or something else. You really want to make sure that you go in and update your SPF record with that information so that when the receiving server, it can verify that the information that you sent out was from somebody that's intended to be recognized as your brand. And that will help boost your deliverability and avoid spam. Because a lot of times what will happen is the system's checking this to make sure you're who you say you are. And it'll just say, I don't know, maybe I won't send it, and maybe I will just put it in your spam. So, and the DKIM works in conjunction with SPF, and this is really just a digital signature that works in the background to make sure that your email is protected. And it's just a second layer of protection. And really, this is all important because email has been around for, I guess, officially in the 70s. And back then, everybody was free and happy. They just sent email. Today, everybody's still free and happy, but there's a few bad actors out there that try to do other things. So they're starting to build in this mechanism to help protect you and their customers. Next slide, please. So the DMARC really is the email security policy. It tells if I fail the SPF, Sender Policy Framework, or the DKIM, I wanted to make sure that I have some kind of rules that tells the server what to do with it. And it serves another purpose if you monitor this stuff. It'll actually show, like if somebody tries to impersonate your brand and you have reporting turned on, you can actually monitor the reports and kind of see what's happening and start to put protections around that. So that's another thing that you can use to help clean up and protect your brand. So I just kind of want to show the flow a little bit. The first shield there, that's your SPF in action. It's saying, hey, I want to verify the sender, and the key is your DKIM. I'm putting a signature on it, and then the legal scales there, that's going to be basically the DMARC taking a look and saying, if they both pass, come on through. If one fails, what do you want me to do? And that's the difference between actually landing in the inbox, their spam filter, or getting blocked. So really there's some steps to get this fixed. It's setting up the authorized senders, setting up reporting, making sure you have your DKIM in place. And you want to kind of slowly do this. So if you're going to set up the DMARC, you really just want to monitor it. And what that means is basically you're monitoring to see what's going on. Because once you kind of start to dial in your security, you can say if something doesn't meet my requirements, I want you to officially block it. But what we want you to do is start out slow and gradually get more restrictive. Obviously, the deliverability equals revenue, because if you can't get seen, nobody's going to, click on your offer. Nobody's going to look at your call to action. You can't convert leads. And this goes to not just marketing, but it also goes anybody that does business, sending invoices, proposals, quotations. I think that's pretty much everybody today. You know, we rely on the deliverability of our email and making sure that it gets there. And we don't want to lose revenue because it's sitting in somebody's spam bucket, or you hear the dreaded, "I never saw it." So it's your brand, it's your trust, and it's your reputation. You want to make sure you check your DMARC and your settings to make sure they're good to go. You want to make sure that you set up your reporting, and you want to make sure that that's all in place. But just to start out, my recommendation is that you check that your DNS is set up correctly with these things. If you bring on a new tool for marketing or email deliverability, you want to make sure it gets added properly to your SPF record and your DKIM. And a lot of those tools, when you go to set them up, will have instructions on how to do that. And if you don't know how to do that, that's something we can help with, or I'm sure that your DNS provider might be able to help you with. Those are things that can help you get your security set up and make sure your brand is protected. And you really want to make sure you get delivery, because not to harp on it, but it's pretty much like putting we're closed today. I'm above a retail shop. I see that a lot. Nobody's going to come in. You really just want to reach those customers, build your brand, build your trust. And if you want to know more, and I apologize, I did not paste this into like I was told to be reminded. But we do have out on our website, we do have a tester that you can go ahead and put in your information. You can just basically put in your URL or your domain, and it will just scan and say like, hey, your SPF is good, your DMARC. And if you're not getting us 10 out of 10, give us a call. There's a discovery link. We'd be happy to help you talk over what you could do to change it. But that's what I have for you today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ray. That was great. I learned a lot myself. We would love to open it up for some questions, anything from design to copy, technical questions for Ray. And if we don't get to your question live, or you sit on this a little bit and you think of a question, don't hesitate. You can also just shoot us an email after the fact too, and we can get back to you.
Ray, I have a question for you when it comes to I'm noticing it more on when I've been emailing personally, but what would happen through my Gmail is I'm emailing with somebody and then all of a sudden I don't get their response because their response went to spam, even though I've had like an open communication with them. So I fear, on a business side, you send a newsletter, they might get a few of them. I've even had that. Like I've gotten a few in my inbox and then all of a sudden they're in my spam. Is that on my side or on the business side or the other person's side? Like what causes that like immediate disconnect after communication?
So is it, when you say using, is it your personal Gmail, like gmail.com, or is it, are you using like Google Workspace?
It's my personal, it's my gmail.com. Yeah. So it's my email that I use for my business, but the one I'm thinking about in particular, I was helping a friend with her own presentation, and she had emailed me the presentation in the midst of a conversation through email. And then all of a sudden it went to spam. And so I didn't think I got it. Was that because I didn't check my spam?
So a lot of times that, you still have to deal, and I didn't discuss it, but because I was more talking about setting up your brand to deliver. But what can happen is, the Google filters start to look at things and say, hey, this looks like they're having a spam, a security trigger has kicked off. It may be very legitimate, and you may have to go in and say not spam is probably what you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have the email gateways So what an email gateway is basically looking at reputation, looking at, believe it or not, they're scanning your content to make sure that it's not, something of risk that's coming through. So it may have just hit one of the thresholds. They put like a score of 1 to 10, for example, in a threshold. And you get for some reason, all of a sudden in the mid conversation, it hits an 8 and goes to your spam to help protect you.
Okay.
If that helps.
And I'm curious too, because when she had emailed me, she had attachment, she was sending me a presentation. So I think on my business side, making sure that doesn't happen as well. Like if I'm emailing with a client and I want to send them an attachment, making sure that that doesn't happen with them, right? That it doesn't sneak into their spam.
Correct. Because a lot of times too now, at least on the Microsoft side and the Google side, they'll have you send a link, and if you take any of our security training, the first thing we tell you is not to click a link. So it's getting interesting.
Yeah, I know not to click a link. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ray, I had a question come to mind. Is there any pro or con of using a platform like Outlook versus Gmail for businesses as far as if those have any sort of built-in security, or is it mostly up to the user to set up those security parameters?
Are you talking specific to like marketing or just in general?
Yeah, in general or for marketing. I know, so from the marketing perspective, like the MailChimp, the Klaviyo, those platforms are sending on your behalf. And so I don't know how much control folks have over those, but like, I guess on the recipient's end, when you're trying to set up, just for business email, kind of like Alyssa was saying, for things that you're sending to potential clients that might not be specific to newsletters, are there specific differences between like a Google or an Outlook or maybe another platform as far as customization of those types of things like the SPF or the debark or?
So I'll answer it as best I can. So I would never say Google or Microsoft is better in a conversation. I'll put that up front. It's like saying Apple and PC. It draws lines. So to be fair, they both have the underlying same technology, right? So if I want to send an email from one place to another, they still have to follow the same protocols because we're in a global world. So basically, as far as deliverability and protecting your business, if you're running it, really on the Microsoft side, it's really tied to licensing. So if you want to be super secure, they have everything available, like advanced spam filters, AI, sandboxing, meaning I get a link, and when I click that link, it will actually explode or turn on the link inside a sandbox. So if I was to accidentally open something that I shouldn't, it in theory will happen in that sandbox. So the Google has some of the similar features, plus you can add third-party products. But to protect your email specifically, I always recommend to our clients that they have not only just the regular built-in security, we add an extra layer of security, especially now that AI and other technology are being used to generate emails. But the biggest thing I want to take away is you'll notice a big slowdown of spam and brand protection when you do these things like what we just talked about. Having SPF, having your domain set up correctly, making sure you're not being impersonated, using your brand. But when you send something, it's pretty much what you had said in your marketing portion. Keeping it, pretty straightforward. Keeping the graphics light, they'll deliver better. If you start adding extra signatures and links and all that will start to get sometimes attached to the spam. So just trying to keep it generic. And I know we always, we want it to look pretty and nice, but sometimes that will trigger spam protection.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Okay.
Ilana, can I throw something in there?
Yeah.
So just in addition to what you just said, Ray, another thing that I was thinking of when Alyssa was indicating what was happening to her, is you have to remember that when you send a piece of email out, it goes through no fewer than a dozen to 20 different computers along the way on what are called hops. All right. And each one of those has to work perfectly every time. I often tell my clients that, hey, you know, if you knew what I know about email, you'd think it might not work at all. All right. In other words, it's amazing that it works as good as it does because it has to go through so many places between where it's sent from and when you get it. So, and they all have to work absolutely perfectly. So think about that for a second, you know, whose computer works perfectly all the time?
Yep, that's a good point. It's kind of amazing how this works. Any other questions from folks? And again, if you think of anything between now and, you know, in the future, you can always shoot an email to myself, to Ray, set up some time with us. We're happy to go over some things. If you're struggling or reaching a roadblock, even with it, if it's design or copy, again, we're happy to look at it. Or if it's technological, I'm sending you to Ray.
Fair. Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk to you. You know, it's pretty important, and it helps, you know, your business stay protected. And we really like to help out if we can. So if you have any questions that come up, or just, I have a discovery link on my, it's not a sales call. Just jump on and we can talk. So be happy to do so.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. And thanks everyone for joining today. I hope you found something that you can take away and incorporate into your own emails.
Yes, thank you
Perfect.
so much.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.